Today on the Commanders Report, head coach Dan Quinn has demoted defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. I'll let you guys know what the plan is moving forward in terms of defensive coordination and play calling. Then we'll talk about some more terrible Commanders injury news. We got more of it after yesterday's loss versus the Detroit Lions. And then make sure you stick around to the end of today's show because I got my film takeaways after yesterday's fourth straight blowout loss for your Washington Commanders. We've got some takeaways coming up later, and they're not going to be positive, just a fair warning. But before we get into today's content here, guys, no matter how bad the Commanders are, we try to give you guys really good content on this football team every single day on this channel. So if you guys want daily, free, and informative Commanders content, this is where you guys get that. Of course, I think we're going to be diving a little bit more into our draft coverage and maybe some offseason coverage here soon. Looking forward to the future of this football team, but make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for our daily Commanders videos, our live shows, including our watch parties. It's all 100% free, guys, so help us get to 50,000 subscribers. We are so close to hitting that milestone. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And with that, let's get into our first item of the day, which is that head coach Dan Quinn has finally, I might add, announced that he will replace defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. as the defensive coordinator and play caller for this football team down the stretch. This is almost assuredly going to mean that the Commanders will hire a new defensive coordinator next year. Now, Joe Whitt Jr. is still with the team. He has not been fired. He has not been relieved of his current duties with the team, but Coach Quinn is going to be in charge of the defensive game planning every single week from now on and will be calling the plays himself. Of course, he's obviously called plays quite a bit throughout his career. He did it in his first head coaching stint with the Atlanta Falcons for quite a bit, and it's certainly a role that he's somewhat comfortable in. But something that really strikes me about this move, man, is that Dan Quinn specifically said coming into this job, one of the big things that he learned from his first stint as a head coach in Atlanta is that he doesn't want to call defensive plays. So you could tell that this was really the last resort for him this season. He doesn't want to do this. He would rather manage the game and manage the entire team as opposed to having to worry about defensive play calling. It is a lot to put on just one person's kind of plate, but it certainly wasn't good enough from Joe Whitt Jr. this season. And honestly, I don't think this changes much. Dan still has a lot of say in terms of what personnel is out there, and I think he's a big part of why Bobby Wagner is still playing on this defense and why a lot of the players that frankly should not be playing on this defense are still playing, and I don't think any of those personnel changes are necessarily coming. So, I don't think that this is going to change much, and maybe you get a slight bump, but I don't think that changing the defensive coordinator here is going to really change all that much because there's just not a whole lot of talent left on this Commanders defense at this point in the season. Speaking of that, and more talent being taken away from this defense, your best corner, Trey Amos, the rookie out of Ole Miss, has fractured his fibula and is likely to miss the rest of the season. That's really disappointing because Trey was having such a good season, and he's going to be a big part of this team's future. There's no doubt about that. You pretty much just shut him down for the rest of the season at this point, man. And you look forward to Trey Amos being your number one corner in this secondary moving forward. And maybe a silver lining to losing Trey Amos for the rest of the season here is that it forces this defensive coaching staff to finally play Mike Sainristil on the outside because, heading into this game, they started playing Sainristil in the slot with Jonathan Jones playing outside. And honestly, I thought Jones held up pretty decently on the outside in this game. He was probably their best overall corner in this game. But then, Mike Sainristil came in and played the outside once Amos left. Of course, you've already lost Marshawn Lattimore for the season. I thought Sainristil played a lot better when he played on the outside. So with some of the good things that we saw from Jonathan Jones and Mike Sainristil playing outside, maybe that's something that could work for the rest of this season. And if Sainristil plays well enough, maybe he can be that number 2 corner of the future with Trey Amos being the future number 1. Pretty much the rest of the season is really to find out, does Mike Sainristil have it as an outside corner? Because I think his tape this year on the inside certainly points to him not being a nickel in this league. Some more really bad injury update here heading into Madrid week is that Terry McLaurin will once again be out this week with that quad injury. It's yet another week and yet another week where Terry McLaurin really, in my opinion, I think he proved this year he is the most important piece to this Commanders offense outside of Jaden Daniels, and maybe even more than Jaden, honestly, because Jaden's replacement, Marcus Mariota, we'll talk about him later, he's actually pretty darn He's a serviceable backup, but there's just nobody on this Commanders offense that can replace Terry McLaurin. And you guys have seen the results of how bad this offense has been when he's been out of the lineup this year. And it just sucks that you give him all that money and he's still not on the field because he's injured. So that really stinks, and it's going to stink this weekend when this team has to face a resurgent Dolphins team, which is playing pretty well at this point in time. But then Daron Payne will also be out this week. He will be serving a game suspension after throwing a punch at an opponent yesterday in the loss versus the Detroit Lions. So it doesn't really matter at this point, honestly, guys. Like, you're going to lose a lot of games. The season's over, but like, he's supposed to be a team leader, man. That's just a really embarrassing look for Daron Payne. And honestly, it doesn't help his case for remaining on this Commanders roster next year. Like, after throwing that punch and doing that shit, like, if he's going to go to this offseason and go to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and say, give me an extension or trade me, I think the answer is going to be they trade him. Like, I really think that could be part of this offseason plan for the Washington Commanders moving forward. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Will Dan Quinn calling plays for the rest of the season make a difference on the defensive side of the ball? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to let you guys know about a great deal to get a great piece of Commanders apparel. While I do that, just give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. And Jaden Daniels jerseys, guys, they are 50% off when you use our link here today, chatsports.com/Daniels. If there's somebody in your life that really likes Jaden Daniels, or you want a Jaden Daniels jersey yourself and you want a great deal on one, 50% off right now. It's today only, though, guys. So you got to go to chatsports.com/Daniels. The deal is only good for today, so make sure you guys go right now, chatsports.com/Daniels. We've got all the different colorways. We've got, of course, traditional burgundy and white, but we also have the Super Bowl era jersey on our website. We also have the black alternate as well. So whatever your style is, whatever your favorite colorway is, you guys can get your Jaden Daniels jersey at a fantastic price right in time for Christmas. Go to chatsports.com/Daniels to make it happen today. All right, so now let's get into my film takeaways from yesterday's loss. Shout out to Joey Peterson for doing our instant reaction video yesterday. I was unable to get to that, but I was able to watch the film today, and boy, was it ugly, man. 44-22. Once again, blowout loss. 3-score deficit, and ever since that Chicago Bears game where you gave that game away to Chicago and, you get more and more of these injuries, it's just been a downward spiral that this team just simply cannot get out of because they just don't have enough talent, plain and simply. But we'll start here with Marcus Mariota, the backup quarterback who got his start here against the Lions, and I thought he was fine. Like, he wasn't bad. He completed over 70% of his passes. He looked like he was operating the offense the way that it was designed to be run, and he didn't have he didn't throw an interception in this one, had 2 touchdowns. So, Mariota certainly wasn't the issue in this one. Whenever you give up 44 points in a ball game, I don't think you can really point to the quarterback or the offense as the main issue. Now, you can certainly argue that 22 points wasn't enough, but with the situation that you were in, you had to start doing different stuff, and the fact that he had to throw the ball kind of as much as he had to throw it, and he still completed over 70% of his passes and looked as pretty good that he did without Terry McLaurin out there. I still think Mariota is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. It's just unfortunate that he doesn't have the surrounding cast around him to be able to show that at this point. I also thought another bright spot on offense in this game was Treylon Burks. He had 3 catches. He had a catch to go over 30 yards in this game. He made another tough catch over the middle of the field, showed off those hands, and they certainly seemed like they wanted to make it more of a point to get him the football this week, and I thought Mariota gave him some good passes, some good looks, and he made some nice catches. I thought that he looked pretty darn good. He looked like a starting caliber wide receiver. Now, does he look like a Terry McLaurin #1 caliber guy? Hell no, he doesn't. That's not Treylon Burks, right? He's going to be more of a supplementary piece and a secondary wide receiver option in the future if he has a future with this team. But I thought it was a good start for him. Last week he didn't really get a whole lot of looks. This week he got more, and I thought he made the most of them. So we'll see how he progresses as the season goes on. Another young guy that I think should be getting more looks is Ben Sinnott. I mean, every time this guy touches the ball, it seems like something is going right for the Commanders offense. All right, he has a really good ability to run after the catch. I think he can be a real screen threat for this team if they want him to. But they keep playing Zach Ertz, who's an older player, obviously, and at this point, man, do you really see Zach Ertz, still being around when this team wins their next Super Bowl? And I don't know if the answer to that question is yes, but Ben Sinnott, somebody that's shown a lot of promise. He's a decent blocker. He plays the game the right way. He's got some really nice athleticism. I think they got to play this cat more, man, because he's been a pretty darn good player for this offense this year, and I want to really see what he does with a full starter's workload. But, in terms of the passing game, guys, I really think this season as a whole, not just this game, but the season as a whole has really shown Terry McLaurin's impact on the team. And this is exactly why we said this offseason you have to extend Terry McLaurin, because if he's not on the field, this team doesn't have a guy that can, command respect from opposing secondaries and from opposing defensive coordinators. And when Terry's been out there, it's been a different product for the Washington Commanders on offense this season. And, with him out of the lineup, I think it really handcuffs this team because defensive coordinators, they're not scared of anybody else. Like, they're not scared of Deebo Samuel cooking them down the field because he's honestly not that fast. All right, he's more of a gadget player. They're not scared of Jalen Lane, who can't catch the football. They're not scared of Traylon Burks, who just got cut by his former team, the Tennessee Titans, right? There's nobody else to strike fear in opposing defensive coordinators. So what do? They play aggressively. They load up the box. They stuff the run. And, without that, field stretching presence of Terry McLaurin, that true number one alpha type receiver, it completely locks up the possibilities for this team because there's just not enough talent to be able to survive Terry McLaurin being out of the lineup. And, I said that this offseason. I said that's exactly why you have to sign him. They end up signing him, and they still don't have him because he's injured. So I think that injury in particular has really, been a killer for the Washington Commanders this season. But, a big positive note here, in my opinion, guys. You guys know that I think Josh Connerly Jr. has been not great this season. I thought he played better this week. I thought that his anchor looked as good as it looked at any point during the season. I thought when they pulled him on a couple of power runs, he looked really good at his athleticism. He looked like he was moving well. He was identifying his guy pretty nicely, and he was detonating on the guy that he was supposed to block. He did his job pretty well. All right, was it a perfect performance? Hell no. No performance from JCJ this year has been perfect, but I certainly think that he is somebody that can still be a starter in this league, and he is some weeks getting better as the season goes on. So hopefully that progression continues to show as the season goes on. But generally speaking, man, the run game has been scary bad. Really, really bad over the last, probably since week 6 at this point, since we've been on this losing streak of 5 straight losses. Like the big reason for that is that this team went from a top 3 run game in the league to, for sure, a bottom 10 run game in the league. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has nowhere to run. Teams are loading up the box against the Commanders, knowing that they don't have any receivers that can stretch the field vertically and win down the field and strike fear in their defense. So, there's just nothing that the Commanders can really do. And until they get somebody that can, put some fear in opposing defenses in terms of the pass game, that run game is going to be plugged up pretty consistently. Also, another big thing that has really been a downgrade is John Bates. Ever since he returned from his injury, man, he has not been the same player. They've re-signed Bates to a 3-year contract because, he's been one of the better run blocking and honestly pass protecting, blocking tight ends in the league for a very long time. Over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, he's been terrible. He's missing assignments. He's losing one-on-one matchups. I don't know if he's playing through an injury and it's affecting his play, but he has not looked good over the last several weeks, and he probably had 3 or 4 really, really bad reps yesterday that were very obvious on film. And then my final takeaway here is to play Jeremy McNichols more. All right, and I know that, Bill Krosky-Merritt has certainly shown some good things this year, but McNichols' efficiency has just been off the charts this year, man. 8.6 yards per target. That is both with carries and with receptions. He's pretty good out of the backfield catching the football. He's pretty good out of the backfield pass protecting as well. He's just been really good, and he's been good all season. All right, he has really been the bright spot for this Commanders offense this year. And hopefully they can get Bill going a little bit more, and they can really get him to have a really good second half of this season, and maybe the run game can be a big bright spot for this Commanders offense down the stretch, and that can be a ray of hope for this team heading into 2026. But I think McNichols is going to have to be a bigger part of that moving forward. They started Chris Rodriguez Jr. yesterday. He was awful. He averaged 2.7 yards per carry. And then, Bill Krosky-Merritt got 11 carries with the same average. Guess who led the team in the average yesterday? It was McNichols with a 5 yards per rush average, and yet he's not getting as many carries. So hopefully they kind of wise up that this guy is a pretty damn good football player, and he can be a part of the solution here in Washington offensively. So coming up here on the Commanders Report, my defensive takeaways. Obviously another very ugly showing for the Commanders defense, and honestly I don't see any way where this unit gets fixed anytime soon, at least not this season. But make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you love this team no matter what. If you bleed burgundy and gold and you are going to love this team no matter how bad they play, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon, support the show, support the team. We greatly appreciate your guys' support. All right, so now on to defensive film takeaways that I had this week, and it's a lot of the same. Honestly, Bobby Wagner still needs to be sat. He needs to retire or something, man. Like, he is just not a good football player unless there's like a blitz where he's going up the middle or there's a run that goes up the middle. He's completely worthless. Completely worthless, man. He can't go sideline to sideline. He's a big liability on those perimeter runs. He's a liability in pass coverage, whether it's man or zone. That's been the case all season, man. And this coaching staff, I think because he's the green dot, because he's a team captain, all this different stuff, he's a leader in that locker room, they don't want to bench the player like that. And I understand that, but at some point, man, like enough's got to be enough. And I think I've been at that point for multiple weeks now. Hopefully with the change at DC, Dan Quinn feels the same way. But then Frankie Luvu, man, like they've been playing him more at edge lately, but now they move him back this week to like off-ball linebacker, and once again, missing tackles out in space, looking lost in coverage. He is all the way regressed after having, I thought, was maybe an all-pro caliber season last year. I mean, Vilma, the color commentary guy on the show yesterday for Fox, was talking about how he's the best defensive player on the team, and I laughed at that because, no, he's not. He was last year. This year, he very much is not. And I think, all he can do at this point is he can rush the passer, and he can clean up a little bit in terms of, spy work and stuff like that. But he's terrible in run defense. He's consistently in the wrong run lane and in his run fit. He's lost in pass coverage, man and zone. He can't make tackles out in space. Frankie Luvu has been a disaster this year, and that sucks because he was so good last year, man, but certainly not this year. Then we get to Jordan Magee, who has been playing more and has been getting more playing time, but it's still very clear that he is still developing, which, by the way, is okay. At least he can run a little bit. At least he can do some things right, and he plays the game the right way. All right? Now, he does get lost in pass coverage. He can take bad, pursuit angles, all that different stuff. He's still a young player that's learning, but that's why you play him, and that's why you play him for the rest of the season, because you hope that he can develop into a very solid starter by the time we finish the 2025 campaign. But then another young player here, guys, that just looks like he's just not going to work out is Jerzon Newton. I mean, last year we were kind of wondering why he wasn't playing more than he was. This year I think we're kind of figuring out why he's not playing as much. The second Deron Payne left the game, he had to step up into a full-time starting role, and he just got pushed backwards all day long, man. He just can't hold his own at the line of scrimmage. And, he's a complete liability in run defense. Now, he can be a little bit disruptive at times and get after quarterbacks on third down situations, but at this point in his career, Jerzon Newton is a third down only kind of pass rush situation type of defensive tackle, and that's what he is. And I don't know if I see him ever becoming a good run defender in this league. And then Quan Martin, another young player that was a part of a recent draft class, obviously in the previous regime, but he played pretty well last year, man. I have no idea what the hell happened to Quan Martin this year, but he has been terrible. Can't tackle, he can't cover. He takes terrible pursuit angles. He needs to be benched, all right? And safety is certainly a position that this team needs to address. Probably not just at strong safety, but also at free safety. I think they need to get 2 new starting safeties next year and next offseason because Quan Martin is just not getting the job done. And then, Kane Madrano was a healthy scratch yesterday. And that worries me a lot because, like, if you're watching Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu play that position right now, and you're saying we can't trust Kay Medrano to even give him a shot, give him a helmet, like, how bad is Kay Medrano? Like, how bad is this guy if he looks that much worse than Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu in practice? And those guys look awful on film right now. I mean, I know Medrano, draft pick this year, athletic guy. Personally, I think Ali Cahoe has a better chance of becoming, a long-term option for this team at linebacker. But kind of like safety, I kind of feel like this team needs a complete new inside linebacker room next year, maybe outside of Jordan Magee, depending on how he plays the rest of the season, and maybe Ali Cahoe if he can put together some good games at the end of the year. But the fact that Medrano's not getting any chance to play at this point is extremely concerning to me. Hopefully, though, he can develop as the season continues heading into next year. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. What is the biggest issue that faces the Commanders defense this year? Is it coaching? Is it Bobby Wagner? Is it the secondary? Is it the lack of a pass rush? Is it the run defense? What's the biggest issue with this Commanders team right now? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Commanders News and Rumors here on the Commanders Report. Tomorrow we'll have more extensive Commanders coverage for you guys as we get ready to take on the Dolphins in Madrid here this weekend. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders.